Hello, and welcome to the Style Matters podcast, brought to you by Little Yellow Couch. I'm Sandra, your host and creator of the slow style approach to designing your dream home. This signature framework puts you at the front and center of your home rather than products or trends or other people's ideas of what beauty looks like. And speaking of which, you can start using the slow style framework to create that dream home by signing up for my free masterclass called The Number One Reason Your Home Doesn't Look and Feel the Way You Want It to. You'll come away knowing how to make sure you're spending money on your home much more wisely, or even not spending at all. And you'll have the confidence to really lean into a style that truly represents who you are without worrying that you'll regret your choices. So as I've said, it's free, it's live on Zoom, and I'll be staying for Q&A after. Go to littleyellowcouch.com and click on Masterclass at the top to sign up. I'm only doing these for a few days at the end of May, so be sure to sign up and choose your date right away. Okay, go to littleyellowcouch.com, click on Masterclass. I hope to see you there. On to today's episode. My guest today is Sara Hillery, a designer in Richmond, Virginia. One of her great talents, in my opinion, is her ability to mix the qualities of elegance, something that's been the hallmark of Southern homes for decades, with a feeling of energy. In other words, she's able to combine youthfulness with wisdom and grace, as well as a maximalist's penchant for detail with the sensibilities of minimalism. You'll have to go to the show notes page on our website to really see what I'm talking about by looking through her photos after you hear this conversation. Here's Sara Hillery. Sara Hillery, welcome to the Style Matters podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, let's just start right away with your background. I understand you studied art in college before switching gears and becoming an interior designer. And I'm wondering what made you do that switch? But then also I know that your love of art is infused throughout your work. So I want to talk a little bit about that as well and sort of the role that you see art playing in our homes.
Absolutely. Well, I can throw you one small curveball. I actually went to college thinking I was going to be a doctor.
Oh, okay. That's a different path.
Because I love helping people. And then it was like halfway through that I said, you know what? I've been doing all these art classes and I've always done art, and I switched to art.
Okay.
And gave my parents a small heart attack because they were like, what in the world? We thought you were going to be self-sufficient for the rest of your life.
Right.
Previous path. And now we're scared you're going to be living with us.
Right.
But I have always loved art. And I did murals for my school back in high school and was very involved there's wonderful resources here in Richmond where I grew up, and I did drawing classes and painting classes through the museum. It's just always been something I've enjoyed. And so when I did switch to art at UVA, which is not exactly an art school, but I had a wonderful program there for myself and kind of focused in painting and 3D digital art.
Okay.
And that's where my parents were like, why don't you intern for this designer I know?
Okay, right.
And so I did. And, that was before websites had the ability to log in, check stock, and see if something exists. So this designer and decorator duo that I worked with were like, yes, we have free labor.
Yeah, right. Interns. Yay.
We are going to make her go through every fabric sample in this whole building and check stock and price.
Wow. Oh, because that had to be done manually, of course.
Manually, yes. Faxing and over the phone. I swear, the poor people who work for Kravet and these other vendors wanted to probably kill me by the end of the summer. But I did it and I still loved it. And so when I graduated, I went back to school and got my master's in interior design. And so, in terms of having art influence it, I think because of my inherent nature for the love of the arts. This was like a natural extension into what is combining that helpful part of my love of originally wanting to be a doctor and help people and make their lives better, in combination with color and pattern and form and all the things that really give us the warm and fuzzies visually.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so I feel like, this is like the perfect marriage of all the things that I have always loved in what I do today. And that's probably why I would do it, 20 hours a day, every day of the week, if if I could sustain that.
Right. If you didn't need to sleep. Right. Well, it's always wonderful to talk to somebody who is just so uplifted by what they do. And I can hear it. I can hear it in your voice. Let's talk about your specific projects, some of them. One of my favorites was a family that you did. They had young kids, and I really admire that they did not want to sacrifice their style or their sense of living in beauty when the kids were young, because I think a lot of people feel like they have to, they're not allowed to have nice things or to even care about what their house looks like or what their surroundings are doing for them or to them when they have young kids. But I do not think that any of us should have to put our lives on hold because of it. So can you talk a little bit about that philosophy, about creating a home that works for both kids and adults?
Absolutely. Well, life is too short. I think if you try to put your life on hold for a period of time, you'll look back at that and go, why did I do that? So I embrace that same mentality. And I think technology, while I am not the most tech savvy person, has really been our friend in the design world. There's the flourishing of available options in indoor outdoor and things like that nothing is foolproof. To say that you're going to use indoor outdoor fabric doesn't mean that if somebody spills something on it, you don't have to clean it, but it does mean that it's cleanable. And so I think I never want a client to feel like they have paid for something and they can't live in it and that they're in a museum. And I think kids help us. It's when I say us, like those of us who are more type A individuals, relax a little bit, right? And they aren't afraid to live. They don't think about all the like things and cost of materials, and that's good, right? That it invites joy in your home. And so I think the same principle applies to the adult side of the family members, right? You need to have things that make you happy. You need to design a home that is going to encourage and facilitate all the activities that you need that house to function for. And, I mean, I'm the worst, right? But I've always said, like I have fine antiques and then I have things that are not so fine.
Yeah.
And if it gets broken, you can put it back together. It's okay. Doesn't mean I won't cry a little bit about it.
Right.
But it still makes me happy. And I would much rather have something that makes me happy that maybe has a little ding in it than something that I look at every day and go, oh, can't wait to get rid of that.
Yes. I mean, I can't wait to get rid of that. I mean, talk about limiting oneself and putting a limitation on how you're going to live sort of your daily life. I mean, forget about the big picture, like, oh, I want to have these beautiful things in this beautiful home, but just your daily life. You walk in and you see, and no offense to IKEA, but you just see like an IKEA Billy bookcase, and it's there's no soul to it and there's no life to it, and it's very functional. Yes. But it's something you have to look at every single day going, oh, I can't wait to get rid of that. I mean, yeah, I do think what it means is this acceptance of the little dings, like you said, and yes. Just being okay with the fact that life happens to all of us. I mean, we have dings on our body just as much as we have dings on our furniture.
That's right. I mean, the project that you were talking about with the young family, I laugh because we did 2 separate spaces, one for the kids and one for the adults.
Yeah.
And after they moved, and we did it in a way that all the colors in the house kind of ran into each other so that if they had gatherings, we could drag things and move them to different rooms.
Mm-hmm.
And not too long after they moved in, I was talking to her, just trying to see, how things were holding up. And she said, the adult room is actually the kids' room.
Oh,
And the kids' room has become the adults' room
really?
because there's such a family-centric family. And she just said, the kids really like the living room. And so
Yeah.
they've really taken it over. And I was like, that's shocking, but that's awesome, because we
Yes.
did it and we used performance fabrics and it's high quality furniture, which, another reason to invest in good furniture is if for some reason something does happen to it, you only have to recover it. The form will stay. The whole piece isn't trashed. So,
Right, right.
um, so I thought that was just an interesting piece of information. I haven't really had a lot of people come back and say, "Oh, actually, the way we intended to use it is not how it's being."
Right. And yeah, and I'm sure you've heard this before, or I've told parents this before that, listen, when they're little, the kids want to be where you are. I mean, forget about the fancy playroom on the second floor. If you're on the first floor in the kitchen, that's where they're going to be,
Right.
and that's just reality. But what I still liked about the fact that you did two separate rooms is that I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think their TV is in one room and not in both rooms. Is that correct?
No, there is a TV in both rooms, believe
Oh,
it or
okay.
not.
Oh, okay. Okay.
One is more disguised than the other, but
I
yes,
see.
there are TVs. Yes.
One of them seems very much set up for conversation and for having people over and sitting together and probably not having the TV when people are over and just really having great conversations. Just the way it's set up, it really feels like very intentional in that way.
Yes, and that's how we intended for it to work. They're not a tiny family, and so we wanted friends to be able to come over, whether adults or children, and
Yeah.
gather. And I love TV as much as the next person, but I don't even have a TV on the first floor of my house because
Hmm.
I'm constantly trying to fight for the person to person interactions.
Right.
Um, not just in my own life, but I think for my clients, to spend time with your friends and family without technology is such a gift.
It
So
is.
if
Yes.
I have somebody who will embrace that philosophy, I take a hold
Right.
of that.
Right, for sure. Well, I want to keep talking about this room,
Sure.
the living room that I think was intended to be the adult space. It's
Yes.
really become the
Yes.
family space, which I totally get. What I want to talk to you about are the mix of materials here
Mhm.
because it's really wonderful mix of pattern material and colors, and yet it does not feel over the top or overly maximalist, which, hey, nothing wrong with maximalism. I'm a maximalist myself, but I know it's not for everyone. But I feel like what people who do not feel comfortable in rooms where there's a lot of stuff and a lot going on, the default then becomes completely whitewash neutral with no personality whatsoever. And
Yeah.
so what I really like about this room, and I'm hoping you'll share a photo of it with us so that we can put it on our show notes page.
Sure.
Um, but what I really like about it is that there's this sense of calm in there until you really start looking at all the details. And you've got like fretwork in here, Chippendale kind of fretwork in the
Mhm.
glass coffee table. You've got marble lamps. You've got pattern pillows that also have a contrasting color of piping on them. You've
Right.
got patterns on some of the chairs, but not all of them. You've got, one, two, three, four, five, six, at least 6 or 7 different colors going on in the room. So again, I think people are going to have to see the room once
To
they
understand it.
stop driving and, they go home and they go, okay, now I got to see the room.
Right.
But tell us a little bit about your thoughts on that. How did you achieve this balance?
Um, so this client happened to love color, which you might can tell from just some of the other pictures. And we wanted to achieve a sense of calm with it and with its original intention of it being the adult space. And so for me, there's an elegance and related to calmness.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so when you want to use and incorporate a bunch of color, you can do that by sort of keeping the colors in the same tonal value, if
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense. So like if you were looking at paint swatches, and looking up and down the little strip of paper. If
Yep.
you take one row and pick values all within that row, you can mix and match color and pattern almost all day long. And
Yeah.
they will read very quietly because there's not
Mm.
a lot of high contrast. And so that's
Mm.
kind of what is happening here. We've got different patterns and textures to add extra interest. And then we've got color, but because they're tonally fairly equal, you can use warm colors and cool colors. And that
Yeah.
helps start pulling that contrast out of it without it being jarring.
Yeah, that's such a great piece of advice to look at those paint strips. And I just for clarity, Sarah's talking about the ones that have multiple shades of one color on it, right? But then if you get like three of them, and in her case, like she's got a lavender, she's got a pink, she's got a blue, a green, and if you line up all of those strips and you go straight across, that's the tonal quality that Sarah's talking about. Is that right?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's so helpful to hear, how our eye reads tone, and contrast. High contrast is going to give you a much more kind of energetic feeling, whereas the same tone, no contrast in tone, is giving you this feeling of calm.
Yeah.
So that's really helpful. I want to switch gears a little. Oh no, go ahead. Did you want to add something?
I was going to say the other thing that I think also helps organize and simplify it when you're using a bunch of patterns is this idea of color blocking in a space too.
Okay. Say more.
So kind of like a piece of art, or especially contemporary art. I feel like this is the same principle that applies to contemporary pieces and more contemporary interiors where things have a lot going on but somehow read simpler.
Okay.
And so instead of having a lot of big patterns that mix a bunch of colors together, your patterns tend to be more within that monochromatic theme within their pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happens is, like in this room, you've got green patterned chairs, purple sofa, pink chairs, and then you're applying, solid fabrics on top of them. And so there's a lot of pattern, but it's blocks of color that your eye visually sees. And so it's
Right.
a lot more organized
Right.
visually. I feel like there's a little bit of a purity and a cleanliness to it.
Yeah. So,
this.
for instance, those green chairs that are patterned, the pattern's very dense.
Yes.
And so, right. I mean, they when you ask me what color chairs are in the room, I would say green and pink.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say, well, green patterned and pink, because it's reading as a green chair, but the pattern itself also keeps it so interesting because it's breaking up the couch and the other chairs that are solid.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like this is like hardest for some of our clients who have like grown up with the idea of everything has to match exactly. Like this is the hardest concept for them to grasp, but it's the one I prefer to use most often because I think it's part of what modernizes spaces and still allows you to get away with all the color that you want.
Before we continue with the conversation, I told you I was going to jump in at some point and tell you about a new project that I've been working on. So here goes. You may know about an online course I teach called Master the Mix. It's about 4 weeks long and it's only available 2 to 3 times a year. And a lot of people have told me that they just don't want to wait for the doors to open. I get it. When you're in the mood to get your house in order and make it look and feel good, you want to do it now. So I've just launched another online course, but this one you can start at any time. It's called Unlock Your Signature Style, and it's right for you if you're new to interior design concepts, if you've just moved into a new home, or if you feel like your whole home needs an overhaul, and if you have no idea what your style is or where to start. Unlock Your Signature Style is a self-paced course that you do on your own with easy-to-listen-to audio lessons and worksheets that go along with them. But I'm also giving it a very personalized touch. everyone who takes the course is able to sign up for a one-on-one coaching session with me. Yep, I'm going to get on a call or Zoom with you and give your home my full attention. Okay, there's plenty of other info on the website about Unlock Your Signature Style, so just go to littleyellowcouch.com and click on Courses up at the top. And one more thing, and this is important, if you've signed up for the Little Yellow Couch newsletter, you're going to get a special 30% off discount code for this new course. Because it's brand new, I really want your feedback. So I'm looking to my email subscribers here to jump in and let me know what you think. And so as a thank you for subscribing, you're getting a 30% off discount. So check out all the info about the course. Make sure you're subscribed to the newsletter. You can do all of that at littleyellowcouch.com. Okay, enough of me blabbing on. Let's get back to the episode.
So that's such a great point, because the question I get all the time is, does this go? Meaning, does it match? I think is what they mean. And it's a hard thing to articulate when things actually do not work together. I mean, you can't just say that, oh, everything works together. I mean, it doesn't, right? Some things really don't work together. And yet being able to mix things together in a way that you're saying, this a little bit more contemporary, or a feeling, it has a very of the moment or present day feeling to it, are usually things that are not matching. That's why I want everyone to go look at your photos so that you could really see what we're talking about. And you'll see, wow, there's actually a lot going on in these rooms, and yet none of them feel chaotic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Something you've become known for is creating the new Southern look. And I would love for you to kind of define that for us. I'm not sure that you necessarily use that phrase, but I've heard the phrase used about you. And I think what it means is that you figured out how to, well, I'm not even going to say what I think it means. I want you to tell us what you think the new Southern look means, and give us some examples.
Sure. Well, I think, some of this probably, I don't know that I'm actively looking for the new Southern look. I think it's just a collection of like my experiences from where I've lived. I grew up largely in Virginia. I've got family in North Carolina, Louisiana, and then I also lived in Texas. And so, I think everybody brings a little bit of their experiences with them as they travel. And so I think that melting pot is kind of what has influenced myself as a designer.
Yeah.
In Virginia, you're kind of in the East Coast, you have this great appreciation for like the Fibonacci sequence and architecture.
Oh, right. Jefferson and all of
that.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, and I went to UVA,
right.
It's kind of like ingrained in me.
Of course.
And I went from the East Coast then to Houston, which was, let's just do away with that theory in some ways. And we're going bigger is better. We're poking holes everywhere, absence of trim, and a much more relaxed feel. And at first I was like, whoa, what is going on here? But then you start really embracing it and learning, the pros of some of that. And so I would say that between these two places, plus, my husband is from New Orleans, so I spent a lot of time there.
Okay.
And I don't know if you can appreciate New Orleans without appreciating like Greek revival architecture and some of these kind of classic styles, but also the history and tradition that the city, I don't think there would be a famous New Orleans city without tradition and history.
Sure.
And
right.
So I think, a lot of the Southern design that I think of has more to do with celebrating each person's tradition and family. And so for me, I can see where, one of the first questions I ask when I'm meeting with a client is, tell me about yourself. What are your hobbies? What do you like to do? What's important to you? And, are there any things that you collected as a child that are stuck in a bin somewhere? Let's pull them out. Let's showcase them. Let's have the house tell your story. And so I think the heritage and traditional part of that is probably more why I get that label of the Southern look.
So what makes it different than, I mean, we're talking about a sense of place, and yes. There are unique senses of place all over the country, well, all over the world, but let's just say the country. I mean, you've got New England, you've got a New England sense of place, you've got California, you've got the Southeast that we're primarily talking about. What makes them distinct from one another? Because I think that that's true about this idea of bringing into your history, your cultural heritage. It certainly is what makes a home really reflect its owners. But what makes it Southern?
I really feel like Southerners embrace the art of storytelling. I just think every place has their own story to tell. But when it comes to design of your homes and buildings, a lot of it is there's this resistance to always to push forward, right? Because I think we're proud of our heritage and we look forward to what's coming. The East Coast looks so different from the West Coast. Projects on the West Coast are more open. They break down the barriers of nature.
Yeah.
There's different weather elements to consider in all locations. And so I think I think who settled there initially probably has something to do with it,
Definitely.
And, so I think it just happens to be, here in Virginia, there's a huge colonial, aspect to the architecture.
Right.
And that is, I feel like, pretty prominent up and down the East Coast. I don't think that's just here in Virginia. I think that's just a part of what the settlers built.
Right. But I mean, I feel like Virginia still feels different to me than where I'm right now, which is Boston. We've got some similar architecture going on, but they're very unique senses of place. And I appreciate that. I mean, I don't want everything to start looking exactly alike. I want to know I'm in a particular place when I'm there. And to kind of continue the conversation about Richmond, so I feel like more and more I'm hearing about interesting design projects coming out of Richmond. Is there something going on in the water down there?
I know.
Am I just late to the party? Maybe it's been going on.
I would love to say yes. I feel like Richmond, like a lot of kind of smaller cities, really has flourished in the last decade. And a huge push was, through COVID, as people were leaving big cities looking for smaller places for better qualities of life in terms of being able to have city life and walkability with a little patch of grass in the backyard for your family. And so I think people came here and have stayed here. And the food culture here has been amazing. I feel like there's always new restaurants popping up. We've had some James Beard nominations. And so growing up here, it's not quite the same city, but I remember thinking Richmond was really crunchy as a child. I loved the indoor outdoor nature because we've got the water and the mountains all 2 hours away from us. And then we've got the river that runs through it. So the land is not flat, it's rolling, it's very green. So it's a pretty place to start with. And so I think nature in itself is an attraction. And then you add the rich history of Richmond and I'm fairly in tune to some of the artistic things that are happening, but, we've got VCU, which is an art school here in the city. And we got the new ICAA Museum of Contemporary Art. And then the Virginia Museum, there's just so many wonderful things happening to push the arts and the cultural aspects of this city. And I think that that's attractive.
Yeah, it's vibrant. Yeah, it definitely. I would like to talk to you a little bit about slow style, which is something I talk about a lot on the show. And in an effort to kind of first for my own edification, and then to be able to talk to other people about it too. I sort of came up with three things that I thought were true across any design project. And that's you want to be open-minded, and I'm not a big one about rules, although I think you do need to understand them before you break them. But I do think there are three things that seem to be true in my experience across design projects. One has to do with lifestyle and making sure you're in alignment, that your home is in alignment with your lifestyle. The other one is about really kind of, in order to be creative in your home, you have to practice it. You have to actually actively try things out. And then the last one is just the realization, the sort of celebration that our styles, our personal aesthetics, they evolve over time, and they should, because hopefully we are growing and changing as people. And so therefore our style is reflective of that, or hopefully it is. I'm wondering which, if any of those, resonates with you and your work as a designer the most.
I definitely would say the latter, that style evolves.
Okay.
I'm a believer in this. I actually gave a talk not too long ago about this.
Oh, cool.
To a group. But I think just everybody in their journey, life is the journey and the good stuff is in the middle, right? But when you're starting out with your first home and style, you're thrifting, or you've bought a few things, but you're a little more scrappy, right? And so
Sure.
You're trying to define what you think you are going to be. Because I think as a younger person, I don't know if you may think you know who you are, but I think
right.
that really is always, I keep saying, when I grow up,
I
haven't grown up yet. So I think the same is true for your house. You start out at one place, and then as you grow up, and you learn more, and you kind of start carving out your interest and defining what it is that truly matters to you, not just in life, but in your hobbies. It also applies to your house.
Yeah.
And it's I like to say that a house is not the same thing as a home. So when you buy those four walls that make your house, it's not a home until you live in it, until you start putting that personality into it.
Yeah.
And I think that is a reflection of where you are in your life and where you've been. And so you start with your scrappy little, first house, and then you move to maybe a second house, or maybe you stay in that house, but you start collecting a little bit more. And in theory, you are active in your career at this point, and you're entertaining friends, and then maybe children get implemented in the mix, or maybe you have a whole bunch of four-legged furry animals, and you start building things that encourage what is important to you. But it tends to be that I think that's a very busy time of life. And so at that point, your home needs to be highly functional and really embrace your schedule.
Yep.
And help facilitate the gatherings, and try to create, I really try to carve little nooks for catching up with each other in a house at that stage, because it is such a high-paced time of life that I don't think that anybody really takes time to sit down and just pause for a moment. So if I can create little quiet nooks and things like that, that is one of my favorite things to do. But then once you sort of get further along, you're not as entrenched in your career. Maybe you're looking at the wonderful world of retirement, and you start looking at your house more and more as a place to really spend your time. And then I find that, I get called in very often at that phase, because life is calming down. You're really taking time to look at your surroundings and reevaluate what's important. And I think that's an awesome time. You can be inheriting things from family members at that time of your life.
Yeah.
It's this, I call that like the great edit, truly, at that
stage. Yeah.
Because you have collected so much, and now it's time to really take a step back, pare down what you have, add to it, and make it come together to create this environment that facilitates how you want to live.
Yeah. Speaking of that part, that time in life, especially since you do work with a lot of your clients are at that time of life. They're empty nesters or they're on the cusp of retirement, and they're kind of trying to figure, okay, what's next? What am I going to do next? Who do I want to be next? And I'm wondering, what are the biggest fears that those people tend to have, or roadblocks, or are they mindset shifts that maybe you need to help them make? Like, are you seeing some commonalities amongst that group of people?
Well, I think everybody tends to be fairly attached to the things they've collected. And
Okay.
so I collect things. I think, oh, one day my children might like this. But what I am learning is that is becoming less and less true.
Okay, right.
And I think a lot of our clients in the same stage are coming to that realization. And so, for them, the struggle is, how important is it? And is it okay to let it, go out into the world if
Yeah.
Somebody in my family doesn't want it?
Right.
And I think that's a tough thing. But one of the things I love to do is reinvent some of those things.
Okay. Yeah.
I took an armoire that was a client's mother's, and we wallpapered the back of it. And, I've painted antique dining chairs.
Yes.
I took a coffee table in a project in Houston that was like an old tree trunk, and we converted it to a dining table. And made this really fun metal pedestal for it and a glass top. I did another dining table where it was the client's first dining table they ever bought when they were first married.
Uh-huh.
And we completely deconstructed it, painted it, added paint, metal, glass, and it became more like a work of art.
Yeah.
But I think it shows that story, right? It's like, this is the original piece that I had, and look at it now. It's awesome. And I didn't just go to a store and buy something else. I recreated it and made something more beautiful. And I think it tells the story of their life too. This shows progress.
I love that. I really love that. That idea of, well, first of all, it's absolutely one of a kind, but it's also sort of, well, it shows the evolution, right? It's the evolution of this object that has morphed over the years and still being loved and used. And now, like you said, it's older and better. Tell me why style matters to you. I'm curious about how you're going to answer that question.
Oh gosh. Well, I think so. As I mentioned, I really love the idea of helping people, whether it's by intentionally organizing their space or trying to create calmness when it's a chaotic life, or create excitement through color and angles in a space. I want my clients to feel like I love where I am. If you do that, I feel like you're always starting each day on the right foot. You wake up in the morning and you say, man, today is going to be a great day. I feel like you already, that is an absolute luxury. And it is a great feeling, it giving your client a sense of place, turning that house into a home that they love, where they can create memories and have it be the backdrop and kind of support them in their daily, connections.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the ultimate gift, right? And so that's why style matters, telling a story about your travels, telling, showing, if you're really into art, being able to talk about, why this art matters to you, that storytelling is a great reflection of who lives there. And I think, I love furniture and things like that, but really the furniture is there as a supportive role.
Yes, absolutely. I love the attention to detail you pay to all of your rooms. And there's just a lot of wonderful little surprises or moments that you don't see all at once when you see, and of course I haven't been in these rooms in person, and I think it's probably even more obvious, this thing that I'm saying, if I were there in person. But when I'm looking at a photograph, there's layers to it. You look at one room and then you keep looking, and then you hope there's another shot of the same room but at a different angle, so that you can say, no, wait a minute, what's going on in that trim there on that curtain? I want to see a close-up. That seems to come back to this idea of storytelling, that there are so many layers and so many little details to our lives, to the stories of our lives, and you're representing that visually in your work.
Thank you. I strive for that,
Yeah. Well, it's working. Sara, thank you so much for talking with me today and for coming on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Okay, I hope that was helpful and inspiring. Don't forget to sign up for the upcoming free masterclass, The Number One Reason Your Home Doesn't Look and Feel How You Want It to. You have 4 times to choose from when I'll be presenting the workshop live and then staying on for Q&A. Go to littleyellowcouch.com and click on Masterclass right at the top. Have a great week. Bye for now.